Hello all, welcome to the session on Module 2 of the course MEMS. I am Dr. Simi Sleba from the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, Rajagiri School of Engineering and Technology. In this session, which is part 1 of Module 2 of the course, we will be dealing with different types of beams, the longitudinal strain under pure bending of the beam, deflection of beams, and intrinsic stresses inside the beam. Coming to the different types of beams, a beam is a structure member subjected to lateral loads, that is, forces or moments having their vectors perpendicular to the longitudinal axis of the beam. In this session, we focus on planar structures, that is, the beams will be lying in a single plane. All the loads will be acting in that same plane, and also deflection of the beam also occurs in that plane. Beams are usually described by the manner in which they are supported. Boundary conditions are applicable to the deflection and slopes at the supports of a beam. Now consider a two-dimensional beam with movement confined in one plane, that is, along the xy plane. Each point along the length of the beam can have a maximum of 2 linear degrees of freedom, that is, it can move along x or y direction, and also 1 rotational degree of freedom. According to the restrictions on the degrees of freedom, 3 boundary conditions are possible. The first one is the fixed boundary condition, which restricts both linear degrees of freedom, that is in the x and y direction, as well as the rotational degree of freedom. That is, no movement is allowed at the support. As it can be seen from the figure, at the fixed end of the beam, this fixed boundary condition is applicable. At this fixed support, a beam can neither translate in the xy plane nor rotate. An example of such a boundary condition is the ground end of a flagpole. The second boundary condition is the guided boundary condition, which allows 2 linear degrees of freedom but restricts the rotational degree of freedom. As shown in this figure, this portion of the beam follows guided boundary condition, where translation along the xy direction is allowed, whereas rotation of that portion is not allowed. The third one is the free boundary condition, which provides for both linear degrees of freedom as well as rotation. At the free end of this beam, we can see that the point of the beam may translate as well as rotate. Example for a beam having free boundary condition is the free end of a diving board. The 3 fixed, guided and free boundary conditions discussed down are tabulated here. Flexural beams can be classified according to the combination of 2 mechanical boundary conditions associated with it. For example, a beam fixed at one end and free at another is conveniently referred to as a fixed free beam, commonly called a cantilever. In MEMS research, the following types of beams are most frequently encountered. First one is fixed free or otherwise called cantilevers, then fixed or bridges, and fixed guided type of beam. This figure shows some commonly encountered beam structures with different boundary conditions fabricated on a single substrate. Consider the structure A, which is a fixed free cantilever parallel to the plane of the substrate. One end of the beam is fixed, whereas the other end is free. The free tip of the beam is capable of moving in a direction normal to the substrate. Consider the structure B, which is a fixed beam or a bridge parallel to the substrate plane. Now the structure C, there are actually two ways to classify this beam. It can be considered as a fixed cantilever parallel to the substrate plane with a thick and stiff part in the middle. Also, this beam can be considered as two fixed guided beams joined in parallel to support that rigid part. The structures marked A, B, E and G in this figure are fixed free cantilever beams, whereas the structures B, F, I and J are fixed bridges. The structure K is a combination of four fixed guided beams connected to a rigid shuttle. The guided beams are allowed to move in the substrate plane, but the out of plane translational movement is restricted. Now, the structures C and H are similar in nature. They can be either considered as fixed cantilevers or a combination of two fixed guided beams. In MEMS design, it is important to analyze the static deflection and stress caused in a beam due to loading. When a beam is loaded, stresses and strains are created throughout the interior of the beam. In order to determine the magnitude of these stresses and strains, we have to find out the internal forces and internal couples that act on the cross sections of the beam. The beam can be loaded in two ways. Loads may be applied at a concentrated location, which is referred to as concentrated load, or they can be distributed over a length or region, which is referred to as distributed load. These loads cause the beam to bend, and they deform the axis of the beam into a curve. The longitudinal strain in a beam can be found by analyzing the curvature of the beam. To calculate the longitudinal strain under pure bending, consider a portion of a beam AB. Pure bending means that the moment is constant throughout the beam AB. We assume that the beam initially has a straight longitudinal axis in the x direction. Also, the cross-sectional area of the beam is symmetric about the y-axis. It is also assumed that the cross-sections of the beam, such as sections MN and PQ, remain plane and normal to the longitudinal axis. Now, when subjected to bending, because of the bending deformation, the cross-sections MN and PQ will rotate with respect to each other about the axis perpendicular to the xy plane. So the longitudinal lines in the lower or convex part are elongated, whereas those on the concave or upper side are shortened. The lower part of the beam is in tension and the upper part is in compression. Somewhere between the top and bottom of the beam is a surface in which the longitudinal lines do not change in length even if subjected to bending stresses. This surface, indicated by the dashed line ST, is called the neutral surface of the beam. The intersection between the neutral surface with any cross-sectional plane, example the line TU, is called the neutral axis of the cross-section. If the cantilever is made of a homogeneous material with a symmetric cross-section, the neutral plane lies in the middle of the cantilever. For a symmetric beam, the distribution of stress and strain follow some guidelines. That is, the magnitude of stress and strain at any interior point is linearly proportional to the distance between this point and the neutral axis. The maximum tensile stress and maximum compressive stress occur at the top and bottom surfaces of the cantilever, and they have the same magnitude. Under pure bending, the magnitude of maximum stress is constant throughout the length of the beam. The magnitude of stress at any location in the beam under pure bending mode can be calculated by following the procedure discussed here. At any section, the distributed stress contributes to the distributed force, which subsequently gives rise to a reaction moment with respect to the neutral axis. The magnitude of normal stress at a distance h to the neutral plane is denoted as sigma h. The normal forces acting on a given area dA is denoted by dF of h. From basic principles, we know that normal stress is defined as normal force per unit area. Therefore, the normal force dFh will be equal to sigma h into the area dA. The moment equals the force dFh multiplied by the arm between the force and the neutral plane. That is, dFh into the distance between the force and the neutral plane, that is h. The applied bending moment is obtained by taking the area integral of the moment dFH into h. dFH can be replaced by the normal stress into the area sigma h into dA. The integration is extended within the width of the beam W and the height which extends from minus t by 2 to t by 2. Assuming that the magnitude of the stress sigma h is linearly related to h, it will be the minimum at height equal to 0, that is the center, and it will be highest at the surface, which is denoted as sigma max. The linear relationship of sigma h can be expressed in terms of sigma max and the height as sigma h is equal to sigma max into h by t by 2. When replacing this in the place of sigma h, we get the applied bending moment is equal to double integral of sigma max into h by t by 2 dA into h. Sigma max and t are constants, hence they are taken outside the integral, and the integral portion is denoted by the term I. The term I is called the moment of inertia associated with a particular cross section. After calculating the total bending moment M, the maximum longitudinal strain can be expressed as a function of M according to the formula epsilon max equal to M into T by 2 EI. E is the Young's modulus, I is the moment of inertia associated with the particular cross section of the beam. Now we shall analyze the deflection of beams under simple loading conditions. The general method for calculating the curvature of beams under small displacement is to solve a second order differential equation of a beam given by EI into d square y by dx square is equal to m of x. Here m of x represents the bending moment at the cross section at location x, and y represents the displacement at location x. The figure shows the coordinate system for describing the bending of cantilever beams, where the x-axis is along the longitudinal direction of the cantilever. In order to solve the differential equation, 3 preparatory steps are required. First one is to find the moment of inertia with respect to the neutral axis. Then find the state of force and torque along the length of a beam. The third one is to identify the boundary conditions. 2 boundary conditions are necessary to deterministically find a solution for the equation. For a beam having rectangular cross section with width W and thickness T, the moment of inertia with respect to the neutral axis is given as I is equal to WT cube divided by 12. For circular cross section with radius r, the moment of inertia is I equal to pi r raised to 4 by 4. Coil springs are most commonly found in macroscale engineering systems. But for microscale devices like MEMS, it is difficult to fabricate and integrate coil springs. So, beams are the most frequently encountered spring element in men. These microbeams serve as mechanical springs for sensing and actuation. The stiffness of these beams is a frequently encountered design concern. The stiffness is characterized by a term called the spring constant or force constant. A coiled spring will produce a displacement X under a point loading force F, where the force F and the displacement X follow a linear relationship which is given by Hooke's law. The mechanical spring constant is the ratio of applied force and the resultant displacement. The spring constant Km is equal to the force divided by displacement F by X. For a cantilever beam with point loading on the free end, the maximum deflection occurs at the free end. For a fixed bridge, where the loading force is applied at the center of the span, the center will be having the largest deflection. Now, in the case of the cantilever beam, where the force is applied on the broad surface, as shown in the figure, the free end of the beam will reach a certain bent angle theta, and the relationship between theta and the applied force F is given by theta is equal to FL square by 2EI. L is the length of the cantilever beam and E is the Young's modulus of the beam material. The resultant vertical displacement of the cantilever beam is given by x equal to FL cube by 3EI. Therefore, the spring constant of the cantilever given by K is equal to F by X, where X is substituted from the previous equation, and we get the spring constant K is equal to E into Wt cube by 4L cube, where I is the moment of inertia, which is equal to W cube T divided by 12. The inferences from the equation for force constant is that the force constant decreases with increasing length L, it is proportional to the width W, and it is strongly influenced by the thickness of the cantilever beam T. Many thin film materials experience internal stress even when they are under room temperature and zero external loading conditions. This phenomenon is called the intrinsic stress. Thin film materials associated with MEMS such as polysilicon, silicon nitride and many metal thin films exhibit intrinsic stresses. The magnitude of the intrinsic stress may be identical or non-uniform throughout the thickness of the thin film. If the stress distribution is non-uniform, a stress gradient is said to be present. The intrinsic stress is important for MEMS devices because it can cause deformation or even damages in excessive cases. affect the surface planarity or change the stiffness of a mechanical element. For example, in micro-optics applications, flat mirror surfaces are required for achieving desired optical performances. Intrinsic stress may warp the mirror surface and change the optical properties. Intrinsic stress may affect the mechanical behavior of membranes as well. For a thin film diaphragm, the flatness of the membrane is guaranteed when the membrane material is under tensile stress. But excessive tensile stress in a clamped membrane can cause the membrane to fracture. A film, on the other hand, would buckle if the compressive stress were present. The origin and behavior of intrinsic stress have been widely studied. In many cases related to MEMS structures, the intrinsic stress results from the temperature difference during deposition and use of the thin film. Thin film materials are often deposited on a substrate under elevated temperature. During the deposition, molecules are incorporated into a thin film with certain equilibrium spacing. However, when the MEMS device is removed from the deposition chamber, the temperature change causes the material to contract at a rate faster or slower than the substrate. The intrinsic stress in a thin film is tensile when a film wants to become smaller than the substrate, and compressive stress results when the film wants to become larger than the substrate. Intrinsic stress can also result from the microstructure of the deposited film. For example, the incorporation of oxygen atoms into silicon lattice during a thermal oxidation process creates compressive intrinsic stress in the oxide film. Intrinsic stress is also caused by phase change of materials and incorporation of impurity atoms like dopant atoms. Consider a cantilever consisting of two layers, with layer 1 being a substrate material and layer 2 being a deposited material. The intrinsic stress of layer 1 is considered to be 0, as shown in this figure A. If the layer 2 is under a tensile stress, the beam would bend towards the direction of layer 2, as shown in figure B. If the layer 2 is under a compressive intrinsic stress, the beam would bend towards the direction of layer 1, as given in figure C. There are several methods of minimizing intrinsic bending. One of it is to use materials having very low intrinsic stress. One of the materials in MEMS that has zero stress is single crystal bulk silicon, or SCS, which is a homogeneous material with perfect lattice spacing distribution. And polymer materials are also known to have relatively low intrinsic stress than inorganic thin film. Also, the deposition temperature of polymer materials is typically low. Parylene is a polymer material that can be deposited by chemical vapor deposition method under room temperature, which has virtually zero stress. For materials whose intrinsic stress depends on material processing parameters, we can fine-tune the stress by calibrating and controlling deposition conditions. And the third method for minimizing intrinsic bending is to use multiple layered structures to compensate stress-induced bending. Microstructures free of intrinsic stress-induced bending are produced by adding stress compensation layers with carefully selected material, stress, and thickness. As shown in the figure, the tensile stressed upper layer and the compressed stressed lower layer contribute to a finite amount of beam bending. The overall deformation can be reduced to zero in theory by adding another layer of compressed stress material on top. With this, we come to an end of this session. Thank you.